Hi, this is Allison Villars with In the Loop. I think this is our 6th in our series. We do it once a month, and the purpose of In the Loop is to keep you in the loop. So today we're talking about volunteerism. And with me for the first section of our show, I have Dee Wild with Volunteers of America. Hi, Dee.
Hi, how are you doing, Allison?
I'm doing well. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I love the opportunity to talk about volunteering.
Okay, so I have a couple of different kind of volunteer questions before
Sure.
we get into nitty-gritty. Have you been a volunteer?
I have.
Tell me about your volunteer experience, please.
I was heavily involved as a volunteer for 21 years with Canine Search and Rescue, where we were training our dogs to locate lost individuals on land and in water. And I responded to over 200 searches over my time with the team, and I was also the trainer for the team. And all of that was volunteer time.
Okay, wait. So you trained and then you took the dogs out to do search and rescue in water?
In water. We worked in boats to find drowned victims, and we were very successful. Mm-hmm. So we had, at that time, around 20 dogs and handlers on the team. So we would come together every Saturday and train for about 4 to 6 hours in preparation of searches. And then when we were called by law enforcement or fire departments, we would go anywhere from Texas to Florida, and we've been as far as Canada on searches.
So is that still around, that volunteer program?
I'm proud to say it still is. I actually was one of the co-founders of Louisiana Search and Rescue Dog Team, called LSAR for short. And so they're still a vibrant team here in our state, and we were the first Canine Search and Rescue Dog Team in Louisiana.
What a cool thing to do, Dee. Didn't know that about you. So tell me about volunteers, a little bit about Volunteers of America, and then we'll step into the volunteer program you have.
Sure. Volunteers of America, most people know it as Volunteers of America Gray New Orleans, but we recently changed our name to Volunteers of America Southeast Louisiana.
Yay!
I know, I'm so
that
excited.
Includes us.
Yes, it does, because we really do serve 16 parishes, so it's not really just Orleans, but many others. And our office here in Mandeville covers the 5 parishes here on the North Shore. So we really enjoy the new name now and very excited about it. But our agency has been around for 120 years, so we've seen a lot, done a lot. And it's a very vibrant organization where we're always trying to look for ways to provide services, especially maybe something that's not being done currently, to see how we can maybe meet the needs of those in need. So we do everything from adoption and maternity, to serving homeless families, to serving mentally ill individuals, to those with developmental disabilities, as well as our veterans. So we have a very broad spectrum of services that we provide.
It's an exciting agency. I've certainly kept in touch with you over time, and now I get to work directly with Volunteers of America here on the North Shore in St. Tammany Parish. So I know you have multiple different programs, but tell me about the program that you are directly responsible and integral to.
Well, that is our RSVP program, and it stands for Retired and Senior Volunteer Program, and it's for those 55 and older to give back to the community, because we realize that our seniors have a wealth of knowledge, and they can really give back to the community. And oftentimes when we're young, we all have a purpose in life. Whether it's when you're in school, it's to graduate, and then when you work in the workforce, it's to find your way through your career, and you have that focus and that purpose. But then when you retire, oftentimes it's like, what is my purpose now in life? Why do I need to get out of bed? And so that's what volunteerism does. It gives a person that purpose in life to go out and actually make an impact in somebody else's life. And so that's what's so critical about the program, is that we actually are able to identify through an interview, sort of like this, with the individual to find out where their heart is, and then we place them at another nonprofit or healthcare facility here in St. Tammany Parish where they can actually enjoy doing what they would like to do. And sometimes it's something totally different than what they did in their career. A school teacher might say, I don't want to go back into the school system, and they might be giving canoe tours out at U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So there's a wide array of volunteer opportunities that are available to our citizens.
So is one of them actually giving canoe tours?
Yes.
How exciting. I love that idea.
It's a great volunteer site.
Okay, so give me an example of a person out there. You don't have to use real names if you don't want to, but somebody who, what skills do they need? How do they get in? How does it start for that person?
Sure. Well, you know what the unique thing is, you don't need any skills. All you need is to have a heart and a desire to help somebody else. And so you come to our office, meet with me, and we sit down and we just find out what you did in your in your career, whether it was a stay-at-home mom or you were actually in the workforce area, and then what is it that you really enjoy doing. And as we talk to the individual, we typically can find several nonprofits that do something similar to that person's interest. Maybe the person says, you know, I have grandkids and I love reading to them because I realize the importance of reading. Well, we have two schools in St. Tammany that we work with where we place our volunteers to actually mentor first, second, and third graders in reading. And so that's something that catches their heart and they're like, that's what I want to do. So one of the nice things about the RSVP program is that we're like a one-stop shop. You can come, sit with us, we'll find out, and we can tell you all the different volunteer opportunities out there so that you don't have to go from place to place to place to see what they need, do they need them, and what do they do. We can give all that to you in that one visit.
Okay, so I've heard of two opportunities. I've heard of what's fisheries, something?
U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
U.S. Fish and Wildlife and canoe tours. I certainly have other volunteer opportunities there too. Yes. And the second is reading to first, second, and third graders or working with them on their reading as a mentor. Right. So what other kinds or types of volunteers have you already placed?
Well, we also work, there's a facility up in Folsom that it's a horse therapy center where you work with the horses. It's for people with physical disabilities. When they ride on the horse, and it's just walking in an arena, their muscles are used just as if they themselves were walking. So this might be individuals that aren't able to always walk by themselves, but yet this gives those muscles that the activity for them to actually go through that whole process and the muscles to be used in a positive way. So that's another thing that, you know, that's through New Heights. We also have just about all the hospitals that we use. So if somebody is interested in the healthcare facilities, we have that.
What do they do at hospitals?
At the hospitals, there's a sort of a wide range, anything from helping in the gift shop, which is one of the big needs right now, to when you go into the hospital, they always have the volunteers that are at the information desk to provide information as you come in as to where things are. Oftentimes they escort the patient to the lab or, you know, to the ER, wherever they're trying to get to. They also go up and help with phones in the ICU, the surgery units and so forth, where the families are waiting to hear, you know, what's taking place. They're the ones that are there answering the phone and calling the family up to the phone to talk with the doctor or the nurse. So it's there's all the things that they do, but there's a variety of volunteer opportunities.
So if I'm interested in being a volunteer, I would call you, or I would just drop by, phone call?
The best is to make a call, because sometimes I'm out in the field. Okay. And if I'm not there, then Gwen Byers, she's our new volunteer coordinator, she can also assist. But it's easier if we have an appointment, we know that you're going to come, so that we make sure that we're in the office at that point. Because a lot of things that we do is out in the field. We're visiting our stations, also doing some recruiting events and so forth.
I know it's a 985 number. Do you have it memorized by heart?
It's 985-674-0488.
Okay, so we'll make sure that that gets up on the screen so that people can see it. My question is, like, from the beginning, I call you, I get a meeting, I'm interviewed, we decide on something. About how long does that process take after that?
Typically within days.
Oh.
Because as soon as you walk out the door, I'm already communicating with that station to reach out to you, to set up a time for you to go and meet with them, so they can go through all their requirements and the schedules and get everything lined up for you. So it's a pretty quick process. And I also want to mention that our office is in Old Mandeville, but if we have residents in the Slidell, Pearl River area, we actually go over there and meet with the resident at either the library or the Coast Senior Center. So they don't have to come to Mandeville in order to get into our program.
That's spectacular. So how many volunteers would you say you have at RSVP now?
Right now we're about 340 volunteers in St. Tammany Parish, all at a wide variety of the stations. We have about 35 stations total that we work with. Those are volunteer sites where people are actually placed. And they are very active. We have some people that say, I just want to do a little thing. So we'll put them on our special events group. So if a special event comes up, like a festival needs some volunteers, those type of activities, they can just work that one day, and that's their volunteer time. We have others that work maybe 4 hours a week, to volunteer, and some do even more than that. So it's all based on what the person wants to do and how often they want to serve.
So do you have an idea of the total volunteer hours you guys are giving to the community?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Last year, I can tell you dollar-wise, because what we do is we take the number of hours, and there's a volunteer federal rate. And so last year we were able to give a mock check, not a real one, but a mock check to the parish for over $800,000. And I think we're going to exceed that this year when we do it at our event.
So if you talk to volunteers after experiences, can you share some of the things that they say that happens to them because they volunteered?
I can. Oftentimes when they first come to us, they're saying, oh, I just want to get out of the house. That's why they want to volunteer. And then we place them, let's take at one of the schools where they're reading with a child and helping that child out. At some point, all of a sudden, they start realizing the impact they're having on that child's life, and that they are really doing something really special. And so it no longer becomes about them, it now becomes about the person that they're serving and the impact that they're having on that individual. And that's the beauty of it, because now they're seeing the bigger picture. It's not just about us as volunteers, it's about who we're touching and who we're impacting through our volunteerism that really makes it much more valuable for all of us.
So do you say the phone number one more time?
It's 985-674-0488.
And they're going to ask for RSVP.
That's all they have to do, and either Gwen or myself will be ready to sit down and meet with them.
Okay, so let me just go over this again. This is RSVP, Retired and Senior Volunteer Program. It's a national program that Volunteers of America, Southeast Louisiana, puts on in our communities to help other residents who might need a leg up, let's say. And the volunteers get as much, as I understand it, as they give to other people. So if you're interested in volunteering anywhere in St. Tammany Parish or beyond, please call RSVP and ask for Dee or Gwen, or just say, I heard about RSVP, I'd like to try and volunteer. And you could, I'm guessing that also you can change volunteer things if something doesn't work for you.
Yes, we can.
So you can move around. And remember, that's over $800,000 of volunteer hours that are donated to our parish. We really do appreciate you coming, Dee. Thank you so much. We're going to be back in a minute. We have another section on volunteerism.
Every year, 40% of all food in the U.S. never gets eaten.
40%. That's almost half the food we produce.
Food waste is a serious problem. It impacts all of us.
And it's expensive. Your family is throwing $1,500 a year in the trash.
We're working hard to put food waste on the chopping block.
And you can do the same at home.
Learn how to cook it, store it, and share it.
Just don't waste it.
Go to savethefood.com.
Hi, this is Allison Villars, and we're back with In the Loop. I have a second volunteer person here to talk about their volunteer experience as well as volunteerism at Good Sam's, and you'll hear more about Good Sam's as we speak. Mark Ricard. Thank you for joining us, Mark.
You're very welcome. Glad to be here.
Okay, so Mark, I asked Dee, you heard in the last piece, about what her volunteer experience was. So tell me, how have you been a volunteer?
Well, I started volunteering most of my adult life. So back 30 years ago, I started with the Preservation Resource Center in a program called Christmas in October. That's what they used to call it. Now it's called Rebuilding Together. So I was the house captain for our company's team, Folger Coffee Company. And I led the effort to recruit volunteers from work and then go out every 2 Saturdays every October to rehabilitate houses for people that can't afford it, handicapped, elderly people. Very rewarding, and getting hands-on work on Saturdays, and got the fellowship with employees that built relationships. So it was really interesting. Then I led all of Folger's volunteer efforts for cancer relays, heart walks, all those kind of things, leukemia and lymphoma society. So I've been heavily involved and I've had the time, and my wife allowed me to do that without too much pressure. So it has been very rewarding. And once I retired, I get more involved in the day-to-day stuff.
Okay.
Yes.
So how did you get involved with Good Sam's ministry?
Well, going to church in the St. Luke Parish, which is that's where we're based, I saw some things that's going on with the Good Samaritan Ministry. You see it in the bulletin, and I said, well, you know, I need to get more involved now that didn't have many other things to do. So I actually put in for being on their board, and they did a little vetting process, and I was elected to the board for about a 4-year term, and that's how I got involved with Good Samaritans.
Okay, so tell me what it's like to be a board member as a volunteer.
Well, as a board member, it's not too time consuming. We talked about different programs that were coming up. Of course, we went over our budget every meeting. If there were some shortfalls, we tried to figure out ways to address that. Ways to get more pro bono work. That's a big part of Good Samaritan Ministry. We have pro bono work from attorneys, dentists, doctors, folks that come to us for help. They can't afford it. We don't feel like spending that kind of money to help that. So we got some doctors and lawyers and dentists to actually offer us pro bono work.
And so as a board member, do you have to know how to be a board member before you're elected to be a board member?
Not really. I mean, it's just everyday people. We had attorneys on the board. We had dentists on the board. We had professionals, lay people, housewives. So it's just people that are willing and have the time to do that.
Okay. And so how much time did it consume?
I would say no more than an hour a month, and because sometimes you have to do some homework to bring to the board and go out and try to solicit other people. So it wasn't a whole lot of time commitment for the board.
Okay. And how would somebody say to Good Sam's that they, I mean, I know what you did,
Right.
but what would people say, not just to Good Sam's, but to other groups when they wanted to be a board member? How do you approach people?
Well, I became a board member because in the bulletin there was a couple of openings for board members. We need a couple of new board members, and I said, well, this could be my opportunity. So you'll see that. They may even mention it at church, at a mass. So I said, well, you know, that's something I probably would have wanted to do. You had to apply for it, basically, and then give a little resume on yourself and your experiences.
Okay. Well, I'm going to add one piece. When I wanted to be a board member in a new town where I had arrived, it was a very small town, but I looked at all the nonprofits and I picked out the top 3 that I would be interested in, and then wrote them all a letter and said, I'm really interested. If you ever need some assistance, please let me know. And one responded, and I eventually became a volunteer first and then a board member as a volunteer. So it worked for me that way too.
Interesting,
So
yes.
just to share, because everybody can really share their expertise and their opinion
Right.
at a board meeting. And so you served as a volunteer you were a full-time employee with Folgers, but
Correct.
you took all your extra time. What did you get out of all the volunteering you've done so far?
I just felt like I had the opportunity and the resources to give back, and it's the right thing to do. And I tried to convince as many of my coworkers to do the same thing. So we had that continues on. After I left, someone picked up my responsibilities. So just this past week, the Folgers volunteered at the Chef's Soiree in Covington.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been doing that maybe 10 years. So we serve coffee, all free coffee to anybody who comes. So they continue to do that. And I just felt also with building the brand, I was out there talking about the brand, and helps our profit sharing and our retirement. So, but it was just, I felt good about doing it.
Okay. So since you've been a board member at Good Sam's Ministry, can you talk to us about the programs they have to help people who are in need?
So all of our programs are based on volunteer run, 100% volunteers. Every penny you give to Good Sam's goes back to the clients. So if a client is in need, and it's pretty much word of mouth because people know about Good Samaritans, what they can do. You can get food from Good Samaritans for a quick pick-me-up if you're running low. We can give you help with the electricity. You're about to get cut off. I lost my job. Electricity, water, sewage, everything. So they know they have to call for an appointment. You can't just walk in. You can walk in if we have the time, but it's not we're pretty structured. So we're open 5 days a week. People call, get an appointment. They see a counselor first. And then a phone interview actually calls them first, just to vet them, to see what their need is, and puts them to the right counselor to come in. So we're making an appointment with a counselor. They come in, talk to the counselor, tell them what they're going through, what their issues are, and we try to help in any way we can.
Okay. So I understand food, and I understand assistance with utilities.
Right.
I get that. So do you do any housing-related kinds of things for people?
If they're about to lose their house, we try to help that. That's a very expensive thing to pay someone's house note. But we try to help as much as we can. And we also are a good place to come to refer you to other agencies. So we've got a good network. So if we can't help you, we're going to try to get you help. So we can refer you out.
And y'all have just formed another assistance to that, am I correct?
Yes, we're calling something called Community Chess. It's a way of going out to the local businesses that are in the Slidell, Pearl River, Anton area to ask them to help us with continuing support annual basis. So it's something new, it's something we're just getting off the ground. So we're going to go to the local businesses that, one of our takes is, CLECO, let's give that for example. We pay CLECO a lot of money helping people with utilities. Well, can we get CLECO to give us a grant every year? So that's a new grant type thing. So it's called Community Chess, and I'm leading that effort.
So you're another volunteer experience?
Another volunteer experience, correct.
How did you get that experience? How did you get to do this?
Once I retired this past May, Sue knew that I was involved heavily. I was no longer on the board because my terms went up. She says, Mark, we're talking about a new opportunity to try to get some of our shortfalls back. Would you be interested in helping? And then it turned out, would you be interested in leading it? So I agreed to lead it.
Okay, so if someone, a business,
Yes.
Is it only businesses or is it individuals as well?
We're concentrating on businesses now, hopefully to make up some of the grants that we failed to get this past year.
Okay, so how would someone, a business or an entity, get in touch with you?
Well, we're going to go out. We're going to go meet with the Chamber of Commerce, the local Chamber of Commerce, and the Rotary clubs, and try to fellowship with the business owners that are in those organizations, showing them the brochure we have, tell them more about the program, and ask them anything they could help us with. If it's a one-time thing, we'll take a one-time thing, but our focus is to try to get a continual annual grant from those guys.
Okay.
Not big, if it could be $500, $1,000, anything to help us make up the shortfall we're experiencing right now.
Okay, and the number that they would call to get in touch with you?
Yeah, that's 985-641, I think it's 6421.
It is?
Yes, okay.
641-6421.
That's correct.
Okay, and they would actually, when they call that number, who are they going to be talking to?
They're going to talk to a volunteer receptionist. So we have a volunteer receptionist every day. They only work 3-hour shifts. It's not a whole time commitment for any of our volunteers. It's usually 1 day a week, 3 hours. We have an extensive list of volunteers. I think it may be over 50 people that come and go and spend their 3 hours and give back to us.
I think one of the most wonderful things about Good Samaritan Ministry is that it is all volunteer run.
100%, yes.
And that all of the money that you take in goes right back out to residents.
Yeah, a little known fact is even our rent or our air conditioner or whatever, that's all given by the church. So we have offices in the church that we do not pay rent on. They supply us with everything. So it's really, really a good organization, and I think one of the few that you can say 100% goes back to the.
Okay. So we talked about how to be a volunteer on the board,
right,
and how you got to be head of the community chest. So if someone out there wanted to be a volunteer for the services that you provide,
right,
how do they make that happen?
So again, our bulletin, hopefully people read the bulletins, and we send the bulletin out by email sometimes. If we have an opening, if we have help needs, we'll put it in the bulletin. We're looking for somebody to do data entry, 3 hours a week. Can we get that? Or grant writing. So we actually publicize that through the bulletin and word of mouth. You know, when you have 50 volunteers, oh, I know someone who may be able to do that. So we approach those.
Okay. So do they have to be a member of St. Luke's?
No.
In order to be a volunteer?
Don't have to be Catholic.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that's a question some of our audience
right, I would
might
think,
be
but
asking.
I don't live around there. But hey, if you've got the time and this hits your heart, come help us.
And where is Good Samaritan Ministry? What's the address or the location?
I think it's on Crossgate Boulevard, right out of St. Luke's Catholic Church on Crossgate Boulevard in Slidell.
In Slidell,
right off of
Louisiana.
Gauze Boulevard. Yes.
Right. So would you make any kind of statement to people who are thinking about volunteer, who are right on the edge of sort of dropping over? Would you make a pitch to them to say, volunteer somewhere, or what would you say to them?
I would probably say, try it, you'll like it. Because I loved it. I fell in love 30 years ago with volunteering, and I had the time, and I have a lot of skills. I used to be a contractor, so working with Rebuilding Together, it was a natural fit for me to help coordinate all those construction things. And I'm a talker about the Folger brand. I love the Folger coffee brand, and so I was marketing the whole time out there when we did other events. And most people who do volunteer end up liking it.
Well, I really appreciate you being here. This is Mark Ricard. He is with Good Sam's Ministry. He is presently working on their community chest, a drive to get employers in the community with a stable, continuing grant to assist all of the people in need in that area. So if you're interested, please call 985-641-6421 and tell them that you're interested in making a contribution to the community chest. In addition, if you want to volunteer, I guess you can call that number too. Same number. Call that, and somebody at Good Sam's Ministry, a volunteer, will answer your call and set up an interview. Thank you so much for watching In the Loop today on our section on volunteering in St. Tammany Parish.